to today's science versus bullshit. Sorry if anyone was just there watching me stare into the distance. It took a long time to load, so don't know how long I've actually been here. But I am here now. I have a ton of really great questions. You know what else I just ate was a Muller rice pudding. So random. Haven't had one in years. So I was like, yeah, okay. Just thought, okay, yeah, I'll have one. It was quite nice. It's meant to be high protein. I'm pretty sure there was like 10 grams of protein in it. So, we're being lenient with the term high, but it was nice. If anyone is thinking of also having a rice pudding. Anyway, right, I'm going to start with a little rant because this is a hill that I will die on, or someone might kill me on because I got a lot of hate this week. Luckily, I have such thick skin that it didn't bother me at all. But basically, the hate was towards me calling out Davinia Taylor's claims around her supplement, her collagen supplement. And some people were like, this is anti-feminist, you're pulling other women down, etc., etc. And I thought it was an interesting point to make because calling out false claims is, to me, like the opposite of anti-feminist, right? It's actually pro-truth, pro-women, like informed decision-making by informed women, right? If feminism is about equality and autonomy and empowerment, then you can't make good decisions based on inaccurate information that you're being exposed to, right? So when women are sold supplements based on misinformation and fear and pseudoscience, that's not an informed decision. And the reality is that women are the primary target for the supplement industry. There is billions spent on selling supplements or quote unquote solutions to problems that are often either exaggerated or misunderstood or entirely fabricated, like you need to block your cortisol and buy these cortisol blockers, or you need a hormone reset or rebalance protocol, or you need to improve your gut health, or there's this magic collagen blend that's now going to improve your gut health and kids should be having it. And like it also something about mental health as well. Like the claims just get like wilder and wilder. And actually what's being relied on is just like clever marketing and a good story, not strong evidence. So calling this out actually protects women from wasting their money, from blaming themselves, from not getting results, from feeling like there's something wrong with them and they're inevitably broken and they need to be fixed. Like I just had someone ask me a question about which supplements they need to be taking because they can't afford all of them. I'm like, this is actually getting like wildly out of hand if you're thinking that you need to spend significant amounts of money a month on supplements. And I've done this calculation before with a post I did last week on, if you're buying like green powders, electrolytes, collagen every month, probiotics, like those alone, and honestly the ones that like realistically most people do not need, that's costing you hundreds of pounds a month and then thousands of pounds a year. And people are now being marketed towards like feeling like they're missing out if they can't spend that amount of money on supplements. And the other point I want to make about the feminism, like weird comment, was that like if a man made false claims about a supplement and I was calling him out, it wouldn't be anti-male, right? Like the same applies here. We need equality, which means that we need to hold women to the same standards when they're putting out misinformation as we would a man. Like it's really irrelevant who's putting it out. And not calling out that information is more harmful because it means accepting a lower standard of truth for women who are primarily marketed towards, which ultimately reinforces inequality and women spending money that, like, if you look at averages and the gender pay gap and wealth inequality, they don't have on supplements that they don't need. Like that's adding to that problem. Anyway, that was my little rant on that. But I just feel like this misinformation disproportionately harms women because they are already told especially through things like perimenopause, that their bodies are fragile, that their hormones are different, that they need like a different fix for a different problem that they have, and that this supplement or this new thing is going to be the thing for them. And I just feel like it's getting worse and worse and worse. Now, I also know that I'm like, what's the right term? You know, when you see a red car and then you see it everywhere, like obviously people send me all this stuff, so I'm exposed to it a lot, but I can see how so many of my clients are like targeted with these ads because Facebook and Instagram can see that they're of a certain age and that they're interested in the gym or weight loss or diets, or they once spoke about a supplement before or bought a supplement. Now they're just targeted with ads and ads and ads. And you can see how compelling this marketing is and how much money and like emotion people are wasting on it. Anyway, one of the questions I had this week was, there's a lot of hype around the gut microbiome. I don't know which claims to believe and what we currently know based on the research. Very good question. And exactly, actually a really good example of like exactly what you should be asking based on the supplements, right? And probably surprisingly, there are a lot of like the supplements that I've listed that I'm like, yeah, okay, in these certain circumstances, yes, take them, but take them with the right information, not thinking they're going to be this like magic quick fix and that it's going to completely change your life. So when it comes to gut microbiome, what we do know is that the gut microbiome is very important. A more diverse gut microbiome seems to have better health outcomes or be linked to better health outcomes. There is a little bit of like chicken or egg here of like healthier people who exercise more and who eat a varied diet tend to have a better gut microbiome. Is the gut microbiome in turn making them healthier, or do they have a better gut microbiome because they're healthier? And it probably potentially has some signals both ways, is the current kind of stance of where we are. Your diet will influence your microbiome, especially how much fiber that you're consuming and the variety of plant-based foods that you have in your diet. Antibiotics can significantly disrupt the gut microbiome, and there is strong evidence of linking the gut microbiome to things like metabolic health, immune function, and some digestive disorders like IBS. So what we know from that is like, yes, it matters, but that doesn't automatically mean like, yes, then we should spend a lot of money on supplements for it. So we don't even have a definition of what a perfect microbiome would look like. We can't reliably test it just via stool samples either, which is a lot of the ways that most people will test the gut microbiome is by a stool sample. Seems to have quietened down, but like the Zoe diet used to do that, where you would send off your shit basically to Zoe and then it would assess what your gut microbiome looks like, and then it would tell you a specific diet to consume based on that, which has so many flaws, and we're just nowhere near that level of being able to personalize your nutrition. The best way I've heard this explained, and I want to give credit, but I can't remember who I heard it from, but it wasn't me, so I'm not taking credit myself. But they kind of explained looking at the gut microbiome from just taking a stool sample as like putting someone, say, in Camden and being like, this is London. This is what you can expect from the whole of London. But actually, if you then went to Chelsea, it looks totally different, right? Or if you went to Buckingham Palace, that place looks totally different. Or if you went to Clapham, it's different again, right? Like you have such diversity within there. You can't just look at one isolated place and be like, oh, Canary Wharf, that's what the whole of London is like. Like everywhere is quite different. Same with your gut microbiome. And then we also don't know which, or well, actually, we know that like most probiotic supplements, we don't know that they like meaningfully change the gut microbiome to have better outcomes long term. So we don't have strong evidence for that at the moment. There are some weight loss claims. They're massively overhyped. There was really a lot of hype and interest around when this one study or like group of studies came out that was looking at transferring, I think basically poo from, well, no, it wasn't. It was like part of the gut microbiome from one mouse to another mouse, from an obese mouse to a lean mouse, and then the lean mouse would become obese, and vice versa. you put the gut microbiome of a lean mouse into a obese mouse, it became leaner. And that was like quite surprising. And I guess there's a hell of a lot more research that needs to be done in that area, but it didn't seem to translate to humans, unfortunately. But still really, really interesting, like why that happened and if it was an impact on things like appetite or um, energy expenditure in some way, is quite interesting. I mean, it would still have to come down to energy balance in some way, but how that mechanism actually works and what the influences were, that's quite an interesting area. But yeah, we don't really have enough information on that yet. If you were thinking, right, I'm going to optimize my gut health, the first thing I'd be thinking of is, are you getting like 25 to 35 grams of fiber in every day? Are you getting a variety of plant-based foods? Most people suggest, or the research suggests, to aim between 20 and 30 types of plant-based foods per week. So this isn't just fruit and veg. It could also be like spices, or like popcorn is technically a plant-based food, right? So you can have like a variety within there. Um, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting fermented foods in there? Are you having regular meals? Are you sleeping enough? Are you doing the right things, stress management, that can also have like a big impact on IBS type symptoms? And then if you've been doing all of that, then I'd be thinking, okay, maybe it's worth potentially trying a supplement. And the next question that somebody asked related to this was, what's the difference between prebiotics and probiotics? Probiotics are live bacteria, and prebiotics are essentially like food for your gut. And like I said, I'd make sure that you're doing everything else first before you even think if you should supplement. Like, say, if you're someone who has IBS, then possibly, but I'd still be working with an expert and using strain-specific supplements, and have someone actually test whether that's working or not for you based on your symptoms. And this is why it's important to do everything else first, so that you know that it's the supplement that is or isn't working, not the fact that you just massively improved your diet or reduced your stress or started exercising or were just generally lost weight, started looking after yourself better. The other time I would suggest thinking about it is if you've been taking antibiotics, but then it would only be a short-term dose. And that would probably be it. But like, even when you look at the evidence of what's going to improve your gut microbiome the most, definitely fiber intake, variety of plants in your diet, sleep, stress management. And then if you've ticked all those boxes, then maybe supplements. But I would be making sure that you've done that first. Okay, the other thing that came up today was I had a discussion with someone, and they were telling me that a certain supplement had changed their life. And whether it has or hasn't, this wasn't really about the supplement. I'm like, okay, here nor there. But I don't think people give themselves enough credit, because it's very, very, very unlikely, unless, for example, you were massively deficient in something, that a supplement is going to change your life, right? It's a supplement. It adds on to the rest of it. It's not even the cherry on top, right? It's like a sprinkle of icing on the top of the cake. It really isn't going to have that big of an impact. Even the very evidence-based ones, right? I've spoken about this before, but even creatine, massively overhyped. Like, yes, there might be a small amount of benefit to taking it, but nowhere near as much as the hype that's like being portrayed by people on social media, because they're obviously trying to sell you something, right? So when people say like this supplement like changed their lives, I just really feel like they're not giving themselves enough credit for the behavior change that they have most likely done, right? So it's probably not the collagen or the probiotics that changed your life. It was the changes that you made, often quite subtly and subconsciously around it, right? Because when you start taking a supplement, if you're going to get up every morning and take your collagen, the likelihood is you're then going to have a healthy breakfast, right? You're not going to get up every morning, have collagen, and then be like, I'm just going to have Cocoa Pops for breakfast with full fat milk. Like, you're probably going to be like, oh, I'm quite health conscious. I'm starting to take this. I've invested in this. Okay, fine. I'm also going to have a healthy breakfast with that. And then you're much more likely to then have a healthier lunch, to go out for a walk instead of commuting to work, or making sure that you get to the gym that week. Like, they're all behaviors that have like knock-on effects. So you might feel like it was the supplement, and I guess you could argue in some ways it was, because maybe that was the catalyst for you then making these changes. But it wasn't the supplement that changed your life. It was you. Like, give yourself credit for that, because you changed your life, not the supplement. Okay, right. Now I'm going to go to the questions that were sent in today. Okay. Alternative milks, oat/coconut. Is there more crap in them? I don't like the taste of cow's milk. Yeah, me neither. And I used to not mind it, but I think when you haven't had it for a while, it really tastes like cow. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's very cowy. So I don't really like it either. I drink a lot of oat milk, like a lot, and I love it. Absolutely love it. But if you're looking at from like a nutritional standpoint, it isn't as good. It doesn't have as much protein in it. Cow's milk, technically, there's naturally much more calcium in it. So you can get oat milks that are, I don't know about coconut milk, I'm totally honest, but that are fortified with things like calcium and B12, right? So you're still getting the benefits of that, especially probably more important if you're a vegan or vegetarian, not you're just like, nah, don't really like cow's milk, I'll just have an oat milk latte instead. Like, that's neither here nor there really. But if you're not drinking cow's milk and you're also not getting in like things like calcium and B12 from dairy from other sources, then that would be something to consider, making sure that the oat milk that you do drink is fortified in these things. There is a lower protein content. It's probably slightly less satiating. It often contains some added oils, which is why it gets demonized quite a lot. These in moderation aren't going to make a huge amount of difference at all. Coconut milk, I think, is quite low in calories. Well, it is quite low in calories. I have to say I don't enjoy the taste half as much, but I really think it's not going to have a huge impact on your life. The only thing I'd be thinking is if you're consuming other forms of milk or alternative milks because you are vegetarian or vegan, specifically vegan, and you're not having dairy from other sources, then I would be making sure that you are getting that in your diet, because you'll feel a hell of a lot better if you go vegan and you don't supplement with B12, or just at least consider where that might be coming from in your diet. Then you may find that you are quite fatigued. Okay, can you recommend a protein powder? I was using Ancient and Brave True Collagen. Okay, so this depends on why you're taking the protein. If you're looking for a dietary protein, whey protein is probably the best option for you. It's also the cheapest. It's readily available. It has a great amino acid profile. It's literally just come from milk. So that would be the option that I'd go for. If you're someone who doesn't like whey protein, or again is a vegan and doesn't want to have whey protein, then soy protein would be your best option, because it still has the full amino acid spectrum. Collagen doesn't. So collagen is missing one of the primary amino acids, leucine. This is very important to trigger muscle protein synthesis. So that's why actually collagen is, despite being massively expensive compared to other forms of protein, or often anyway, certainly with Ancient and Brave, it's actually a lower quality protein. So if that's the reason that you're taking it, then I would not be taking that as a dietary form of protein. And then to give collagen its full credit, there is a very, very small amount of evidence that it might reduce joint pain in certain situations, and skin elasticity, again, a very minimal effect in certain situations. And even then, the research is quite hit and miss, and a lot of it is industry funded. So not something I would spend money on. But the whole point in this is like, there's the information, there's the level of research we have, there's the impact that it might have. You decide whether you want to spend your money on that or not. Not me. Okay, what are your thoughts on Berocca and similar tablets? So these are like the fizzy vitamin C and sometimes B tablets. I think Berocca is like vitamin B and C. If you're not deficient in B vitamins, it's probably not going to do that much to have more, because your body's quite good at keeping quite a tight amount. So it will just pee it out. they are water-soluble vitamins. So that's why often if you take things like that, your pee often looks a different color, like quite like fluorescent or like very yellow or something, because you're actually just peeing out the vitamins that your body was like, well, we already have enough. We don't need these. So yeah, if you're already getting enough, I wouldn't bother with it. Sometimes I'll have it if I feel a cold coming on. Now, do I think that actually has much impact? Probably not. Probably more of a placebo, but fine. They're also not particularly expensive. And like I say, you just pee it out, so it's not like the end of the world. Is not drinking enough water masking weight loss due to lack of inflammation clearance? No. I don't know where that narrative has come from, but no, like dehydration is not going to stop you losing fat. I wouldn't recommend dehydration. I wouldn't recommend not drinking enough water. I think that you should probably try and drink more water, but that's not the reason that you're not losing fat, unless you're then overeating because you're dehydrated. But again, like the fix would be drink water, not some kind of overly complex inflammation thing. And like realistically, if you're dehydrated, you will probably weigh less, not more. But if you have been quite severely dehydrated and then you consume quite a lot of water, like, and there can be some like imbalances and you kind of overhydrate for a period of time. But yeah, I am not exactly sure where that's come from, but the answer to that is no. Okay, struggling with perimenopause. Oh, sorry, I'm a struggling perimeno girl here. And seeing content on cortisol hindering weight loss. Is this true or false? False. But it's not the cortisol that's stopping you, nor is anyone diagnosing you, actually looking at your cortisol levels. They're just assuming that you have high cortisol because you're perimenopausal. And maybe because of a few symptoms like, I don't know, you struggle a bit with bloating, or you feel quite puffy, or you get fatigued, or you feel highly stressed. That doesn't actually mean that your cortisol levels are high. And then they're going to tell you some kind of solution to that. It's almost definitely not your cortisol levels. If it was, that would be a medical problem and you would need to go and see your doctor about that. But that's not what's stopping you lose weight. It will still be down to creating a calorie deficit, but your life has probably changed. And I spoke about this last week, but your life is not the same as it was. Nobody's is, right? Whether you're perimenopausal or not. If you're like, God, what worked for me 10 years ago just doesn't work for me anymore. Yeah, because your whole life is probably different than it was 10 years ago. You probably have many, many things that have changed within your life. So the specific way that you were eating and exercising might not fit your life anymore, or might not even fit your preferences anymore. So the approach that you take is different, but the fundamentals that are getting you results are still going to be the same. Another comment that was quite interesting in this thread of people hating on me was someone was like, "Oh, I wouldn't just come and say that exercise or building muscle is just about lifting weights to a personal trainer." I was like, but it is. Like everyone overcomplicates everything. Yes, of course, if you have good programming, I would highly recommend having good programming. But fundamentally, building muscle is just lifting weights. That's why so many different ways of lifting weights work, right? You can build muscle in numerous different ways. Is it always optimal? No. Could you train 5 days a week or 3 days a week? Yes. Could you do a push-pull leg split or a body part split and still build muscle? Yes. There are loads of different ways to do it. And for sure, you can argue about how to optimize it for a specific individual, but it still comes down to the fundamental of yes, you just need to lift some weights. I don't think I answered that question, did I? Yeah, okay. I think I did. Okay, and then she says, I struggle to lose despite being in a calorie deficit and working out. And this is the part that we need to dig into, because the truth is you're not in a calorie deficit consistently at the moment. That's no failure of yours. There are so many reasons that someone might not be in a calorie deficit. It's not the cortisol, but what it could be is your feeling of stress, and that impacting your appetite, that impacting how you deal with stress. If you're someone who's a stress eater, that might also impact your likelihood to be sleeping well, recovering well, motivated, which again is going to impact your eating behaviors and thus your calorie intake and potentially your calorie expenditure. Like all that's fundamentally what's happening. So now we need to look at, okay, what's causing you this stress? What can we do about it? How can we better manage that? How can we also look at your diet and exercise so that it fits with your life now? You're not just trying to stick to somebody else's targets or a way that you used to eat that used to work for you. Chloe and I spoke about this on the podcast today, that we'll often get people come to us and say, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it. And I would say 9 times out of 10, when you dig into what people quote unquote know what to do, it's not actually the right thing for them to be doing, right? So they might be like, oh, I know what to do. And then you delve a little bit deeper and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just eating totally clean. No bad foods at all. And I'm like, right. So you're labeling foods as good and bad. You're scared of eating some kind of food. You're over restricting in your diet. Or they're like, oh yeah, I know what to do. I need to stick to a 1200 calorie diet. And well, actually, you could stick to significantly higher calories, make your life a lot easier and get great results because you're not yo-yo dieting. Often what you think you need to do, or what someone has told you need to do on social media, or you've listened to a podcast and they've said that you need to fast and you're like, right, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. But you've actually been misled, or you're listening to somebody else's advice that might be right for them potentially, or they're just trying to sell you something, but hey, it might be right for them. But it isn't right for you and it isn't right for your life because it hasn't been personalized to you. And really, that's what good coaching is. It's like, okay, fundamentally, if fat loss is your goal, we need to get you in a calorie deficit. But what does that look like for you based on your life, not based on what anyone's saying on social media or whatever supplement they can flog you? Um, I've gained weight taking creatine. Is this normal? Yes, it's very normal to gain weight. It's actually less likely that you're going to gain much weight as a woman, partly because we have lower creatine stores. We don't have as much muscle mass generally. I mean, obviously, I have a huge amount of muscle mass, but no, most people don't have that much. Most women don't have that much muscle mass, myself included. I'm obviously joking, which means that there's not going to be a huge increase on the scales because there's actually not that much space to store a huge amount of creatine. The other thing that I will say is that you actually want a little bit of water retention when you're taking creatine. It's kind of a sign that it's working. Anyone that's like, oh, this creatine doesn't cause any water retention is basically saying, oh, this creatine doesn't work because it's not being stored, right? So like, remember when everyone found out that creatine gummies had no creatine in? You know, people are like, oh, I take these and I didn't get any water retention. It's like, yeah, no shit, because there was no creatine in them. So actually you want to store some water because that's part of storing the extra creatine. So I would expect potentially a little increase on the scales. I wouldn't expect a huge amount. It's also not water retention in the way that most people think about it. It's not like puffy. It's not like how you feel potentially the week before your period where your weight goes up. It's within the muscle because that's where the creatine is being stored. And people who have maybe started with lower creatine stores, so for example, it's coming up a lot today, but vegans or vegetarians probably don't get as much creatine in their diet. Thus, they might have more capacity to store more creatine because they've started with lower levels. And they might see slightly more water retention or slightly more increase on the scales, but it's a small amount. And then someone off the back of this asked me, do I need to be in a bigger deficit if I'm taking creatine because of the increase on the scales? No, you certainly don't. Like, this is not anything to do with fat loss. You're literally just storing more creatine and thus a little bit more water in order to store that creatine. Nothing to do with fat loss, has no impact on fat loss whatsoever. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm going to try and keep these to 30 minutes. I hope it was useful. Thank you for those who showed live, and I will see you next week.